The afternoon light filtered through the maple trees outside my window, painting everything in those soft golden hues that only autumn brings. I'm Lauren, 47, and my days had settled into a quiet rhythm since the divorce. Mornings were for coffee on the porch, afternoons for tending the garden or losing myself in a book, evenings for the gentle hum of the television keeping me company. Everything felt safe, predictable, maybe a little too predictable. I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror as I passed, hair loose around my shoulders, a simple cream sweater hugging my frame. I looked like the woman everyone expected me to be, composed, independent, content. But inside, there was this restless ache I rarely admitted, even to myself. Nights felt longer lately, the house too still, my skin too aware of its own loneliness. A few days earlier, a sudden downpour had caught me while I was out walking. Marcus, my neighbor from 2 houses down, had appeared like some quiet guardian. Without a word, he'd draped his jacket over my shoulders, the heavy fabric still warm from his body. His voice had been low and steady when he told me to keep it until the rain passed. I'd thanked him quickly, cheeks warm despite the chill, and hurried home with the scent of him clinging to me, something earthy and masculine that lingered in my thoughts longer than it should have. Now the jacket hung in my closet, clean and folded, waiting. I told myself returning it was the right thing to do, just a simple neighborly gesture, nothing more. Yet as I picked it up, my fingers traced the collar, and I felt a tiny flutter low in my stomach. Why did the thought of seeing him again make my pulse quicken just a little? I slipped on my coat, the autumn wind already whispering through the trees outside. Leaves danced across the sidewalk as I stepped out, the air crisp and carrying that smoky, sweet promise of the season. My heart gave a small, unexpected skip when his house came into view, warm lights glowing behind the windows against the cooling evening. If my words are already making your heart beat faster, if you're feeling that same dangerous pull, then I want you to stay with me. Tap subscribe right now so you don't miss any part of my confession. I paused at the edge of his driveway, the jacket folded neatly in my arms. It was just a jacket, just a polite return. So why did my skin already feel warmer, as if his presence was reaching for me before I even knocked? I shouldn't want this simple errand to feel so tempting, but there it was, that quiet, forbidden curiosity stirring inside me, making me hesitate just a moment longer on his front step. The cool autumn wind tugged at my coat as I walked the short distance to his house, leaves swirling around my ankles like restless secrets. Twilight had settled in soft purples and deepening oranges, the air carrying that crisp bite that makes everything feel more alive. I held Marcus's jacket close to my chest, its familiar weight both comforting and strangely charged. My heart was already beating a little faster than it should for such an ordinary task. I climbed the 3 wooden steps to his front door and paused, taking a slow breath. The porch light cast a gentle glow, illuminating the scattered golden leaves that had gathered there. Before I could overthink it, I raised my hand and knocked softly, 3 quiet taps that seemed to echo louder in my chest than they should. The door opened moments later, and there he was, Marcus, 52, his tall frame filling the doorway with that quiet, steady presence I remembered. His dark hair was lightly tousled, a few silver strands catching the light, and his deep-set eyes met mine with a warmth that made something inside me shift. He wore a simple charcoal sweater that hugged his shoulders, the kind of effortless masculinity that felt both safe and dangerously inviting. "Lauren," he said, his voice low and smooth, carrying that slight huskiness from years of quiet evenings. A small smile touched his lips. "I was wondering if you'd bring it back." I offered the jacket with what I hoped was a casual smile. "I couldn't keep borrowing your warmth forever. Thank you again for that day." The rain came out of nowhere. He took the jacket, his fingers brushing mine for the briefest second. That single touch sent a subtle spark racing up my arm, my skin tingling in a way that felt entirely too noticeable. I pulled my hand back quickly, telling myself it was nothing, just the chill in the air meeting the warmth of his home. "Come in for a moment," he said, stepping aside. "It's getting cold out there. Let me at least offer you something warm to drink before you head back into that wind." I hesitated, my mind whispering that I should simply thank him and leave. But the inviting glow from inside, the scent of something faintly woody and comforting drifting out, and the way his eyes held mine just a fraction longer than necessary, it all pulled at me. My body reacted with a gentle heat rising in my chest, a restless hunger I hadn't felt in years stirring awake. I really shouldn't stay long, I murmured, even as I stepped across the threshold. The door closed softly behind me with a quiet click that sounded final in the most tempting way. The house enveloped me immediately, warmer than I expected, with soft lamplight casting golden pools across polished wood floors and comfortable furniture that spoke of a life lived thoughtfully. A fire crackled faintly in the living room fireplace, its gentle heat reaching out like an invitation. Marcus led me toward the kitchen, his movements unhurried. Tea? Coffee? Or maybe some spiced cider? It feels like the perfect evening for it. I nodded, trying to keep my voice steady. Cider sounds lovely, thank you. My pulse was racing now, a quiet drumbeat beneath my calm exterior. I shouldn't want this simple kindness to feel so charged, but standing here in his space, the autumn wind howling softly outside, while everything inside felt so intimately warm, I felt that dangerous pull tightening around me, making it harder to remember why I had come for just a moment. He moved with quiet confidence, pouring the steaming cider into 2 mugs. The aroma rose between us. Apples, cinnamon, and a hint of something deeper that mingled with his own subtle scent. When he handed me the mug, our fingers touched again, lingering this time, just enough for me to notice the warmth of his skin against mine. My breath caught softly, a tiny sigh escaping before I could stop it. We stood there in the kitchen for a moment, the silence comfortable yet electric. His eyes met mine over the rim of his mug, and I felt my cheeks flush with a heat that had nothing to do with the drink. What was this man doing to me with nothing but a look and a simple gesture? I told myself I was only being neighborly, but deep down, I knew this ordinary evening was already shifting into something far more tempting, something I wasn't sure I wanted to resist. We moved from the kitchen into the living room, the firelight dancing across the walls in soft, flickering patterns that made everything feel more intimate. The spiced cider warmed my hands through the mug, but it was nothing compared to the gentle heat rising inside me as I settled onto the edge of the couch. Marcus sat across from me in a worn leather armchair, his posture relaxed yet attentive, those deep-set eyes watching me with a quiet intensity that made my skin tingle. At first, our conversation stayed safely on the surface. How the autumn leaves had turned so beautifully this year, the way the neighborhood felt quieter as the days grew shorter. I laughed softly at a story he told about chasing a rogue leaf across his yard, my voice sounding a little breathier than usual. But slowly, the words deepened. He spoke of losing his wife several years ago, the long evenings that followed, the way silence had become both companion and burden. His voice dropped lower, husky with memory, and I felt my heart ache in recognition. I know that kind of quiet, I confessed, my fingers tracing the rim of the mug. After the divorce, the house felt too big, too empty. Some nights I'd sit with a book, but the words would blur because my mind kept wandering to what was missing. I shouldn't have shared that much, but the fire's warmth, the comforting scent of wood smoke mixed with his cologne, something subtle and masculine that wrapped around me like an embrace, made the words slip out naturally. He nodded, leaning forward slightly, his gaze never leaving mine. It's strange, isn't it, how you can be surrounded by life and still feel unseen. The way he said it sent a dangerous little shiver down my spine. My body reacted before my mind could catch up, a warm flush spreading through my chest, my pulse quickening with that restless hunger I'd tried so hard to ignore. There was a pause, the fire crackling softly as our eyes held. I told myself to stand up, to thank him for the cider and leave while everything was still innocent, but my legs felt heavy, rooted by the irresistible pull of his calm strength. His hand rested on the arm of his chair, close enough that I could imagine the warmth of it. When he reached to refill my mug, our fingers brushed again, longer this time, deliberate in its gentleness. Heat rose in waves, making my breath hitch with a soft, barely audible sigh. Be honest with me. Have you ever sat across from someone and felt your whole world tilt just from the way they looked at you? Tell me in the comments below. The conversation drifted further, touching on dreams we'd set aside, the small joys we still chased in our quieter years. Marcus's voice wrapped around me like the fire's glow, low and soothing, each word drawing me closer without him moving an inch. I found myself leaning in, my sweater slipping slightly off one shoulder, exposing a hint of skin that suddenly felt too sensitive to the air. My heart raced with that forbidden longing, the dangerous awareness that this man, my neighbor, was awakening something deep and tempting inside me. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours, yet not enough. Every small gesture carried weight. The way he smiled when I spoke, the subtle shift of his body toward mine, the way the light caught the silver in his hair and made him look both strong and vulnerably human. I crossed my legs, trying to steady myself, but the movement only heightened my awareness of how my body was responding. Skin tingling, a gentle warmth pooling low and insistent, whispering that I shouldn't want this closeness so much. Another soft sigh escaped me as he described a favorite memory of stargazing on clear autumn nights. "You should see the sky from my back porch sometime," he said quietly, his tone carrying an invitation that made my pulse stutter. I shouldn't want this. I shouldn't feel this pull toward a man I barely knew beyond polite waves across lawns. But the restless hunger grew, making every breath feel heavier, every glance more charged. If you've ever felt that dangerous spark with someone you know you shouldn't, what did you do? Did you stay, or did you run? Share your story below. I'm listening. The room seems smaller now, the fire's heat mirroring the one building between us. My fingers trembled slightly as I set my empty mug aside. Marcus noticed, his expression softening with something tender and knowing. He didn't push, didn't rush, just sat there, offering that steady presence that made me want to lean into the temptation instead of away from it. My mind raced with conflicting thoughts. Leave now while I still could, or stay and let this slow, delicious tension wrap around me completely. A log shifted in the fireplace, sending up a shower of sparks that matched the ones dancing through my veins. I caught myself staring at his hands, strong, capable, yet gentle in the way they held his mug. The thought of those hands brushing my arm again sent another wave of warm desire through me. I bit my lip softly, a vulnerable habit when the longing became too much, and looked away, cheeks flushed. Yet I didn't stand. I couldn't. The irresistible pull kept me there, heart racing, body alive with sensations I hadn't allowed myself to feel in years. Every moment built the tension higher, layer by tempting layer, until the air between us felt thick with unspoken possibility. I knew I was crossing into dangerous territory with every extra minute I stayed. But in that soft, firelit room, with autumn wind whispering secrets outside, it felt like the most natural, most forbidden thing in the world. What would you have done if you were sitting there, feeling that same restless hunger rising? Would the pull have been too strong for you too? Tell me honestly in the comments. The conversation lulled into a comfortable silence, broken only by the fire's gentle crackle and our shared breathing. I felt seen in a way that terrified and thrilled me. Marcus's eyes held a quiet intensity, as if he sensed the storm building inside me. My skin prickled with awareness, every nerve alive to his nearness. This was supposed to be simple, returning a jacket. Instead, it had become something far more tempting, something that made me question how long I could resist the dangerous comfort of his world. The fire had burned lower, casting long, intimate shadows across the room. The spiced cider was long gone, but the warmth between us had only grown. Marcus rose slowly to add another log, the movement drawing my eyes to the quiet strength in his shoulders. When he turned back, our gazes locked, and the air felt suddenly heavier, charged with everything we hadn't said. He crossed the short distance and sat beside me on the couch instead of returning to his chair. Not too close at first, but close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from him, mingling with my own rising flush. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure he could hear it. "Lauren," he murmured, his voice low and rough with emotion. "I didn't expect tonight to feel like this." I swallowed, my throat tight with conflicting desires. "Neither did I whispered, my words barely more than a breath. I shouldn't want this. He was my neighbor, a widower still carrying his own quiet grief, and I was a divorced woman who had promised herself safety and distance. But the restless hunger inside me had been building for too long, and his nearness was like a magnet I couldn't fight. He reached out, his fingers lightly brushing a strand of hair from my cheek. The touch was feather soft, yet it sent sparks racing across my skin, making my breath catch in a soft, trembling sigh. My body reacted instantly, warm desire flooding through me, every inch of me tingling with that dangerous, irresistible pull. I leaned into his hand without meaning to, my eyes fluttering half-closed as the sensation overwhelmed my better judgment. Marcus's thumb traced my jawline with aching tenderness, his touch full of the same longing I felt mirrored in his eyes. "Tell me to stop," he said quietly, giving me the choice even as his voice revealed how much he hoped I wouldn't. But stopping was the last thing my racing heart wanted. The forbidden nature of this moment only made it sweeter, more tempting, the knowledge that we were two lonely souls finding solace in each other's warmth on a crisp autumn night. I didn't speak. Instead, I let my hand rise to rest against his chest, feeling the steady, rapid beat beneath my palm that matched my own. The fabric of his sweater was soft, but the heat of his body burned through it, drawing me closer. Slowly, so slowly, he drew me into his arms. The embrace started gentle, almost hesitant, as if we both understood how significant this crossing was. His arms wrapped around me with careful strength, pulling me against the solid warmth of his chest. A soft sigh escaped my lips as I melted into him, my cheek resting where I could hear his heart racing. The scent of him surrounded me completely now. Wood smoke, subtle cologne, and that deeper masculine essence that made my head spin with longing. My hands slid up his back, fingers tracing the lines of muscle through his sweater, memorizing the feel of him. Every point of contact sent waves of tingling warmth through my body, my skin alive and hypersensitive in the most delicious way. We stayed like that for long moments, simply holding each other in the firelight. No rush, no demands, just the tender, overwhelming comfort of being truly seen and held. His hand moved in slow circles along my back, each stroke building the heat rising between us. I felt vulnerable and powerful all at once, my inner craving awakening fully under his gentle touch. "This feels dangerous," I whispered against his shoulder, my voice husky with emotion and barely contained desire. "But I don't want to pull away." His arms tightened just enough to let me know he felt the same. "Then don't," he breathed, his lips brushing the top of my head in the lightest kiss. That small gesture sent another rush of warm longing through me, making my pulse thunder. I tilted my face up to meet his eyes, our breaths mingling in the small space between us. The pull was irresistible now, a magnetic force born from months of quiet glances and years of hidden emptiness. "Be honest with me. If you were there, feeling that same forbidden longing wrap around you, would you have stopped me or pulled me closer? Tell me below. I need to know I'm not alone in this." Our foreheads rested together, the moment suspended in sweet tension. His hand cupped the back of my neck with exquisite care, thumb stroking gently. I could feel the rapid rise and fall of his chest against mine, our hearts beating in a shared, frantic rhythm. The taboo of it all, two neighbors crossing into something far more intimate, only heightened every sensation. My body trembled with the intensity of it, warm desire spreading like honey through my veins, making me acutely aware of every inch where we touched. When his lips finally brushed mine, it was the softest, most tender kiss imaginable. Hesitant at first, then deepening with quiet passion as years of loneliness melted away. It wasn't rushed or demanding. It was a confession in itself, full of romantic yearning and the dangerous thrill of finally giving in. I sighed into the kiss, my fingers curling into his sweater as the world narrowed to just us, the fire and the autumn night pressing against the windows. In that moment, everything changed. The careful walls I built around my heart crumbled under the weight of this irresistible connection. I knew we had crossed a line we could never uncross, and yet it felt like coming home after years of wandering. My skin still tingled where his hands rested. My heart raced with a mix of guilt and pure, overwhelming joy. This gentle, forbidden embrace had awakened me in ways I never expected when I simply came to return his jacket. As we slowly drew apart, foreheads still touching, I whispered, "What have we done?" But my voice carried no regret, only wonder at how deeply this one evening had already changed me. I sat there on the couch, still wrapped in the lingering warmth of Marcus's arms, my breath coming in soft, unsteady waves. The fire had settled into glowing embers, casting a gentle reddish light across the room that matched the flush still burning on my cheeks. My heart hadn't slowed. If anything, it raced faster now, in the quiet aftermath, each beat echoing the tender kiss we had shared, and the way his hands had held me with such careful longing. Marcus stayed close, his forehead resting lightly against mine, one hand gently stroking my hair as if he couldn't bear to let the moment end completely. I could feel the rapid rhythm of his pulse beneath my palm where it rested on his chest. Neither of us spoke for a long time. The only sounds were the soft crackle of the dying fire and the distant whisper of autumn wind against the windows. Slowly, reality began to filter back in. I was in his house, in his arms, a man I had only known through polite neighborly waves and one rainy afternoon. The weight of what had just happened settled over me, not with shame, but with a profound, trembling awareness. My body still tingled everywhere we had touched. My skin felt hypersensitive, alive with the memory of his gentle embrace, the warmth of his breath, the irresistible safety I had found in his strength. A warm, deep desire continued to pulse through me, quiet now but undeniable, leaving me feeling both exposed and strangely renewed. I should go, I whispered, my voice husky and vulnerable, barely louder than the embers. That even as I said the words, my fingers tightened slightly in his sweater, reluctant to break the connection. Marcus nodded slowly, understanding in his eyes, yet he didn't pull away immediately. Instead, he pressed one more soft kiss to my temple, the gesture so tender it made my chest tighten with emotion. As I finally stood, my legs felt unsteady, as if the ground had shifted beneath me. I smoothed my sweater with trembling hands, suddenly aware of how disheveled I must look, hair slightly mussed, lips still warm from his. The jacket I had come to return lay forgotten on a nearby chair. I picked it up, holding it against my chest like a shield, though it offered no protection against the storm of feelings swirling inside me. Marcus walked me to the door, his hand resting lightly at the small of my back. That simple touch sent another ripple of tingling warmth through me, reminding me how deeply my body had reacted to him. The cool night air rushed in as he opened the door, a sharp contrast to the heated intimacy we had just shared. Leaves swirled on the porch, dancing in the wind as if celebrating or warning me. We stood on the threshold, the moment stretching with unspoken words. "Tonight changed everything," he said quietly, his voice low and full of the same longing I felt. I met his eyes, my own filled with a mix of wonder and the first hints of guilt. How had a simple errand to return a jacket led to this, to feeling so seen, so desired, so dangerously alive, after years of quiet loneliness? Have you ever had one evening completely rewrite how you saw yourself and what you truly craved? Be honest. Did it leave you feeling guilty, or did it feel like waking up? Tell me in the comments below. Your words mean more than you know. I stepped outside into the crisp autumn night, the wind tugging at my coat and cooling my heated skin. Yet the warmth inside me refused to fade. Every step back toward my own house carried echoes of his touch, the way his arms had held me, the soft sigh we had shared, the forbidden romance that had blossomed so unexpectedly. My mind raced with restless thoughts, replaying every glance, every brush of fingers, every vulnerable confession. The hunger he had awakened still hummed beneath my surface, tempting and persistent, making me question how I would ever look at his house the same way again. By the time I reached my front door, the jacket still clutched in my arms, I realized I wasn't the same woman who had left earlier that evening. Something profound had shifted. A dormant part of me had stirred, stretching toward the light of possibility, even as guilt whispered that this was dangerous territory. I paused on my own porch, glancing back toward his glowing windows, my heart still racing with that irresistible pull. The night felt different now, richer, more alive, filled with the promise and peril of what had begun. I slipped inside my quiet house, closing the door behind me, but I couldn't close the door on the memory of Marcus's embrace or the warm, tempting longing that now lived inside me. I stood on my porch for a long moment, the cool autumn wind swirling around me, yet it did nothing to calm the heat still blooming beneath my skin. The jacket hung loosely in my arms, no longer just fabric, but a tangible reminder of everything that had happened inside Marcus's house. My fingers trembled slightly as I touched the collar, remembering how his hands had felt tracing my back, how his breath had mingled with mine in that tender, forbidden kiss. My heart refused to settle. It kept racing with that same dangerous rhythm, sending warm waves of longing through me every time I pictured his eyes, his quiet strength, the way he had held me like I was something precious he had been waiting for. I shouldn't feel this way. I was a 47-year-old woman who had built a careful, orderly life after divorce. Yet one evening, one simple act of returning a jacket had cracked everything open, awakening a restless hunger I thought had faded long ago. The neighborhood was silent now, houses dark, except for the soft glow still visible from his windows down the street. I knew he was probably sitting by the dying fire, thinking of me the same way I was thinking of him. The pull between us felt magnetic, irresistible, even from this distance. My body still tingled with the memory of his touch. My lips carried the ghost of that soft, emotional kiss, and deep inside, the craving only grew stronger, more tempting with every passing second. What had begun as an innocent errand had changed me in ways I couldn't yet fully understand. Marcus had awakened something romantic and dangerously beautiful inside me, a longing that felt both terrifying and exhilarating. Part of me wanted to walk back right now, to knock on his door again and lose myself in his arms once more. Another part whispered that this was only the beginning of something I might not be able to control. I turned the key in my lock with a soft click, stepping inside my quiet house, but my thoughts stayed with him. The night stretched ahead, full of restless possibilities and the sweet ache of forbidden connection. Would I be able to sleep knowing he was so close? Would tomorrow bring regret, or an even stronger pull toward the man who had made me feel truly alive again? If my confession has stirred something deep inside you tonight, if you're lying there feeling that same warm, dangerous longing, then stay with me on this journey. Tap subscribe so you never miss when I find the courage to tell you what happens next. And please, be vulnerable with me. Tell me in the comments, when a moment like this finds you, do you surrender to the pull or try to walk away? I'm waiting to read every honest word. Your stories make me feel less alone. For now, I'll carry this secret warmth with me into the night, wondering how long I can resist going back to his door, and how much I truly want to,